Picture this. You negotiate what you think is a clever deal to hand over some tiny islands nobody's heard of to solve a decades-old colonial headache. You pat yourself on the back for being a responsible global citizen, and then the United Nations, the actual United Nations, publishes a report saying they're deeply concerned about your treaty and it might be trampling on people's rights. Oh, and you're also paying 100 million quid a year for the privilege while potentially handing strategic territory to a Chinese ally. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where today we're diving into Keir Starmer's Chagos Islands deal, which has gone from controversial to catastrophic faster than you can say Diego Garcia. But before we proceed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more updates on this channel. Thank you. This is a masterclass in how to create a diplomatic, financial, and political disaster all at once. So buckle up because this one's got everything. Right, let's set the scene, because if you're not a foreign policy nerd, you might be wondering what on earth the Chagos Islands are and why we should care. The Chagos Archipelago is a group of islands in the Indian Ocean that Britain has controlled since the Napoleonic Wars. The most important island is Diego Garcia, which hosts a joint UK-US military base that's absolutely crucial for operations in the Middle East and Indian Ocean. Think strategic refueling point, intelligence hub, the kind of place that makes military planners very happy. Back in the 60s and 70s, Britain forcibly removed the Chagossian people who lived there so the Americans could build the base, which was, let's be honest, utterly shameful and has been a source of international condemnation ever since. Mauritius has claimed sovereignty over the islands for decades, arguing they were illegally separated when Mauritius gained independence in 1968. The International Court of Justice ruled in 2019 that Britain's continued administration of the islands was unlawful and violated international law. The UN General Assembly backed that ruling, so Britain's been under pressure to do something about this colonial hangover, and Starmer's government decided the solution was to hand sovereignty back to Mauritius while leasing back Diego Garcia for 99 years so the military base can continue operating. Problem solved, right? Not even close. The deal they've struck is absolutely wild. Britain agrees to recognize Mauritian sovereignty over the entire archipelago, pays Mauritius at least £101 million per year according to Labour, though critics say it could be much higher, possibly up to £120 million or more, for a 99-year lease on Diego Garcia. That's potentially £12 billion over the life of the agreement, and that's before accounting for inflation or any additional costs. We're paying a fortune to lease back a military base on territory we've controlled for 2 centuries. It's like selling your house, then renting a room in it from the new owner, except the new owner is mates with your geopolitical rival, and you're paying them billions for the privilege. Now, here's where it gets really spicy. The UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination has just published a report expressing deep concern about the treaty and its impact on Chagossian people. Remember them? The people Britain forcibly removed from their homes so we could build a military base? Turns out they're not happy with this deal either, because it explicitly prevents them from returning to Diego Garcia, their ancestral homeland. The UN committee says the treaty is inconsistent with UN General Assembly resolutions and prevents Chagossians from exercising their cultural rights and preserving their cultural heritage. The UK is also being criticized for failing to consult Chagossians on the deal or offer full reparations or acknowledgement of past injustices. So let's pause and appreciate the magnificent irony here. Britain negotiated this deal partly to resolve an international law issue, to show we're responsible global citizens who respect UN rulings and human rights. And the result is a deal that the UN says violates the very people who were harmed by our original colonial actions. It's like apologizing for stealing someone's car by giving it to someone else while still using it yourself and not involving the original owner in any of the discussions. Spectacular own goal. The Chagossians have been trying to return to their homeland for decades. They've fought legal battles, campaigned internationally, and finally thought they might get justice when the ICJ ruled in their favor. Instead, they get a deal negotiated between Britain and Mauritius that continues to exclude them from Diego Garcia indefinitely. The treaty allows Mauritius to develop resettlement programs on other islands in the archipelago, but not Diego Garcia, which is the main island and the one most Chagossians actually want to return to. The Foreign Office's response has been that they recognize the importance of the islands to Chagossians, and Britain will support heritage visits. Heritage visits. That's like evicting someone from their home, keeping it for 50 years, then offering them the chance to pop by for a tour once in a while. It's insulting. The Conservatives are absolutely hammering Labor over this. They tried to amend the legislation last month to include a 30-day consultation with Chagossian community before it went to committee stage. Labor voted that down, presumably because they knew actual consultation would reveal how unpopular the deal is by the people most affected by it. Now the UN's backed up what the Tories were saying, that Chagossians should have been consulted and their rights should have been central to any agreement. That's politically embarrassing for Labor because it makes them look like they're ignoring opposition concerns and international human rights standards. But the Chagossian rights issue isn't even the main criticism the government is facing. The bigger controversy, at least in Westminster, is the security and financial implications of handing sovereignty to Mauritius. Mauritius has an extremely close relationship with China. They signed a landmark free trade agreement in 2019, and Beijing's been funding major infrastructure projects there. Dams, sports complexes, broadcast centers, the works. China's pouring money into Mauritius as part of its broader Belt and Road strategy to increase influence across the Indian Ocean region. Now, Britain's handing sovereignty of a strategically vital archipelago to a country that's firmly in China's orbit. What could possibly go wrong? The concern isn't that Mauritius will immediately kick out the UK and US military presence. The lease is supposed to last 99 years. The concern is what happens over that time period. What if Mauritius allows Chinese intelligence operations on the other islands? What if they grant China access to infrastructure or surveillance capabilities near Diego Garcia? What if the relationship between China and the West deteriorates further and Mauritius decides siding with Beijing is more valuable than honoring the lease? We're trusting a small island nation with close Chinese ties to uphold a military arrangement that's crucial to Western defense interests for nearly a century. That's a hell of a gamble. Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel went absolutely in on Starmer, accusing him of being desperate to kowtow to China at every opportunity, handing over British sovereign territory and billions of taxpayers' cash to a Chinese ally. She said Starmer ignored the Chagossians, and now the UN's called him out for it. She finished with a zinger, asking whether Starmer will halt ratification, as the UN calls, or whether he'll bulldoze through all opposition and trample on Chagossians once again to win favor from Xi Jinping. It's aggressive stuff, but it lands because there's truth to it. The deal does benefit a Chinese ally, it does exclude Chagossians, and the UN has criticized it. Those are facts, not just political spin. Labor's defense has been that this deal secures the long-term future of the Diego Garcia base, resolves international law issue, and that the status quo wasn't sustainable. Fair enough. Our position probably was indefensible. Forcibly evicting people and then refusing to give up territory for decades tends to look bad. But that doesn't mean this specific deal is the only or best solution. You could have negotiated sovereignty with stronger protections for Chagossian return rights. You could have insisted on security guarantees regarding Chinese access. You could have structured the financial arrangement differently so we're not paying billions. Instead, we got a deal that manages to upset the Chagossians, alarm security hawks, cost a fortune, and empower a Chinese ally all at once. The financial side of this is particularly galling. We're paying Mauritius $100+ million per year to lease back a military base on territory that was ours. Mauritius didn't build that base, they haven't maintained it, they've contributed nothing to its strategic value. They're getting paid purely because we've recognized their sovereignty claim. It's a nice windfall for them, less thrilling for British taxpayers who are already dealing with tax rises and spending cuts. That $100 million a year could fund a lot of nurses, teachers, or literally anything else. Instead, it's going to Mauritius so we can keep using a base we've had for decades. Critics say the actual cost could be even higher than labor claims. There might be additional payments, inflation adjustments, infrastructure costs, all sorts of things that aren't captured in the headline figure. We won't know the full financial impact for years, by which point Starmer will probably be arguing that it's too late to back out and we're stuck with it. That's often how these deals work. Sell it as reasonable and affordable, then the true costs emerge gradually once everyone's committed and there's no turning back. The security implications are genuinely concerning, and not just because of conservative scaremongering. The Indian Ocean is becoming increasingly contested strategic space. China's building ports and facilities across the region as part of its string of pearls strategy to secure sea lanes and project power. The US and its allies, including Britain, have been trying to maintain a presence and counter Chinese influence. Diego Garcia is absolutely central to that effort. It's an unsinkable aircraft carrier in a critical location. Compromising its security or putting its long-term future in doubt